Somewhere under the residential streets of Galveston, Texas, there is a canal. 3 miles long, 200 feet wide, 20 feet deep. It was cut straight through the middle of a living city between 1904 and 1911, and when they were done using it, they buried it. Houses sit on top of it right now. That canal was part of the largest urban engineering project in American history at that time. After the deadliest natural disaster this country has ever seen, which killed between 6,000 and 12,000 people in a single night, the survivors did not rebuild their city. They picked it up. Every building, every water main, every sewer pipe. They jacked 2,000 structures into the air, and they pumped 16 million cubic yards of sand underneath them. The contractors who designed it went bankrupt doing it. One of their dredges sank on Christmas Eve before it ever reached Texas, and the man whose job was to warn everyone made up a story about riding through the streets on his horse. We checked. Nobody remembers seeing him. This is that story. The man who was supposed to protect Galveston was named Isaac Klein, head of the United States Weather Bureau office on the island. In 1891, 9 years before the storm, Klein published an article in the Galveston Daily News with the headline, "The Texas Coast Not Liable to Serious Damage." In that article, he wrote that it would be impossible for any cyclone to materially injure the city. He called the idea of a major hurricane hitting Galveston an absurd delusion. That editorial helped kill an earlier proposal to build a seawall. So on the morning of September 8, 1900, when a Category 4 hurricane was bearing down on the island, Galveston had no seawall, no evacuation plan, and no official warning. Cuban meteorologists at the Belen Observatory in Havana had been tracking the storm for days and tried to telegraph Washington. The U.S. Weather Bureau blocked their messages. This was 3 years after the Spanish-American War, and Washington did not trust Cuban science. So Klein was operationally blind. By noon, the Gulf of Mexico was already in the streets. By 7:30 that evening, survivors described the water rising 4 feet in 4 seconds. The island's highest point was 8.5 feet above sea level. The storm surge topped 15 feet. There was nowhere to go. The city's anemometer blew apart at 100 miles per hour, so we do not actually know the peak wind speed. Modern reconstructions estimate the winds between 120 and 145 miles per hour. The Galveston Daily News later published a confirmed list of 4,263 dead by name. The U.S. Weather Bureau set the floor at upward of 6,000 for the island alone. Texas Governor Joseph Sayers telegraphed Washington on September 20th and said the regional total cannot be less than 12,000. Clara Barton arrived 5 days later with 8 Red Cross staff and estimated nearly 10,000. The real number will never be known because thousands of bodies were swept into the Gulf, burned on open pyres, or buried in mass trenches that now lie under the grade-raising fill. What happened in the days after the storm is the part most people have never heard. 50 black men were forced at gunpoint onto a barge loaded with roughly 700 corpses. They weighed the bodies with stones and dumped them into the Gulf. The tides brought them back within days. After that, they built funeral pyres on the beach using debris from destroyed homes. Workers were given whiskey rations to endure the smell. The pyres burned day and night for weeks, well into November. The last body was officially recovered on February 10, 1901, 5 months after the storm. Brigadier General Thomas Scurry was named military governor under martial law. A Galveston newspaper editor described his regime as an absolute dictatorship, without precedent and without restriction. If you could work and you did not eat. That was enforced at bayonet point. If you want to see what they built to make sure this never happened again, like and subscribe. What comes next is the engineering. In September 1901, the state of Texas appointed 3 engineers to solve the Galveston problem. The chairman was Brigadier General Henry Martin Robert, a retired Army Corps officer who had spent 30 years building fortifications, lighthouses, and harbor walls on every coast in the country. He is also the man who wrote Robert's Rules of Order. The other 2 were Alfred Noble, who would become president of the American Society of Civil Engineers in 1903 and later help plan the Panama Canal, and Henry Clay Ripley, a local engineer who had built Galveston's earlier jetty system. Their plan had 2 parts. First, a seawall. Then, raise the entire city behind it. Construction on the seawall started October 27, 1902, when the first pile was driven at 16th Street. The contractor was J.M. O'Rourke and Company from Denver. They built the wall in interlocking 50-foot sections, 16 feet wide at the base, tapering to 5 feet at the top, 17 feet above mean low tide. It weighed 40,000 pounds per linear foot. That is 20 tons of concrete for every single foot of wall. The granite for the riprap came from Granite Mountain near Marble Falls, Texas, over 200 miles inland, the same quarry that supplied the Texas state capitol. A steam-powered concrete mixer sat on a wheeled platform that straddled the 16-foot wide foundation and was pushed forward by hand as the wall grew. It had 2 mechanical arms. One pulled sand, cement, and crushed granite from rail cars. The other swung in the opposite direction and dumped fresh concrete into the wooden forms. For the upper sections of the wall, a second mixer was brought in that was more than twice the size of the first and towered above the 17-foot framework. Here is the number that stopped us. The entire original seawall used only 5 railway carloads of reinforcing steel. 5, against 5,200 carloads of crushed granite. This is not a reinforced concrete wall. It is a gravity wall. It holds because it is too heavy to move. The first segment, 3.3 miles from 6th Street to 39th Street, was finished July 29, 1904. Total cost, $1,581,000. Like and subscribe if you want more stories like this. The seawall solved only half the problem. Behind it, Galveston still sat 5 feet above sea level. Any water that got past the wall would pool in the city like a bowl, so they had to raise the ground. In December 1903, the contract went to Goedhart and Bates, a New York engineering firm run by a Dutch hydraulic engineer named P.C. Goedhart and his partner Lyndon W. Bates, who would later go on to design the 3-lake system for the Panama Canal. They proposed something no one had attempted at this scale. They would dredge sand from Galveston Harbor, pump it through a canal system cut through the city, and flood it under every building in sections. They ordered a fleet of self-propelled steel hopper dredges from their shipyards in Germany. The largest was the Texas. She cost $250,000, had 1,900 horsepower, and could carry 1,500 cubic yards of sand in a single load. She was launched from Danzig in late November 1904. On Christmas Eve, somewhere in the Atlantic, she went down. Captain James Alexander Minot survived. He and his remaining crew were picked up by an Italian vessel, transferred to a second ship, and landed in Waterford, Ireland on January 11, 1905. Minot returned to Galveston and lived to 96. The original logbook of the Texas, with his entries from December 24th describing the sinking, is still in the Rosenberg Library today. The surviving dredges made it: the Holm, the Leviathan, the Triton, the Nereus. Alongside them worked cutter dredges named the George Seeley and the Galveston, plus a vessel called Dredge No. 6. Before the canal could be dug, 350 houses had to be physically moved off its path. Then the dredges cut a channel 3 miles long through the heart of the city, starting at 8th Street near the harbor, running parallel to the seawall 100 feet behind it, with 2 turning basins so the dredges could reverse direction. They pumped the sand slurry through 42-inch diameter pipes into quarter-mile square sections enclosed by earthen dikes. Each section was flooded with a mix that was 80 to 90% water. When the water drained, the sand settled out, and the ground level rose. Buildings were lifted ahead of the fill using hand-turned mechanical screw jacks, not hydraulic. These were basic iron screws turned by laborers using long handles, raising a fraction of an inch per turn, with timber cribbing stacked underneath as the lift progressed. St. Patrick's Catholic Church weighed an estimated 3,000 tons. Contemporary accounts say they put 700 of these screw jacks under it, and had 100 men turning the handles in unison to raise it 5 feet. Residents stayed in their homes during the lift. Boardwalks connected blocks at second-story height. Sometimes the walkways ran straight through a neighbor's front parlor. 2,156 buildings were razed in total. Not a single condemnation lawsuit was filed. Homeowners paid for their own lift, and the city paid for the fill. Goodhart and Bates went bankrupt 5 years into the project, losing over $250,000, roughly $5 million in today's money. The man who would later help engineer the Panama Canal could not finish Galveston. The American Dredging Company took over and completed the work in late 1911. That seawall got tested for real on August 16, 1915, when a storm at least as strong as the 1900 hurricane hit Galveston head-on. Survivors who lived through both storms said the 1915 hurricane lasted twice as long. The surge exceeded the 1900 tide by 3 inches. Behind the wall, deaths on the island numbered in the single digits. In 1900, without it, that same surge had killed thousands. The original 1902 concrete is still there. The 3.3-mile section between 6th and 39th Street is the same gravity wall poured between October 1902 and July 1904. It has been patched, rip-wrapped, and reinforced, but the core monolith is original. The seawall has been extended over the decades to roughly 10 miles total. In September 2025, on the 125th anniversary of the storm, Guinness World Records certified the continuous sidewalk above it as the longest uninterrupted walkway on the planet. Hurricane Ike hit Galveston in September 2008 with sustained winds of 110 miles per hour and a surge of 12 to 15 feet. Waves overtopped the seawall. They did not breach it. The parish priest at St. Patrick's Church, Father John Bach, told FEMA that the church survived Ike because of the 5-foot grade-raising lift performed 103 years earlier. The grade-raising fill came from the floor of Galveston Harbor, which in 1904 was layered with a century of shipping debris and harbor silt. That material now sits under every house south of Broadway. The 3-mile canal was deliberately refilled and built over. People mow lawns above it. They park cars on it. Most of them have no idea it exists. Under that ground is the work of a century ago. Isaac Klein, the man who wrote that it would be impossible for any cyclone to materially injure the city, was not fired after the storm. He was promoted. He was transferred to New Orleans to run a new regional forecast center. His brother Joseph, who later claimed he had pushed for stronger warnings, was demoted and had his pay reduced. The combined cost of the seawall and grade raising ran to approximately $6 million in 1911 money, somewhere around $140 million today. The American Society of Civil Engineers designated it a National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark in 2001. The firm that built the seawall, J.M. O'Rourke and Company of Denver, no longer exists. No corporate archive survives. The firm that designed the grade raising went bankrupt before it was finished. The biggest dredge they ordered sits at the bottom of the Atlantic. $6 million then, $140 million today. If you drive through Galveston today, you can still see the grade transition. Walk from Seawall Boulevard toward the Strand District downtown and the ground slopes downward, 1 foot for every 1,500 feet, the precise drainage angle the engineers designed over a century ago. Notice the grade transition as you walk. So here is the question. Klein said it was impossible. The storm proved him wrong. And then the machines came. 4 dredges crossed the Atlantic. 1 was lost on the way. A canal was cut through their own streets. 2,000 buildings were jacked into the air. 16 million cubic yards of sand were pumped under them. The contractors went bankrupt. The canal got buried. The wall held. Like and subscribe. Tell us in the comments, did you know there was a 3-mile canal buried under Galveston?